Right, so Rupert, we are recording. We're all good to go. So what we're looking at with your site review today, as you know, it's the first formative review of your work, and we're going to be looking at mainly research at this stage, but we'll just make sure everything that should be there is there, and try and find suggestions of anything else that can go on it. Okay. Is there anything you're struggling with at this point in the project, or?
I don't think so. No.
Are you happy it's all going well?
Yeah.
Cool. Right, so we got RT final project, fine. What we could have, what I would say presentation-wise on the homepage is eventually, as you're starting to produce artwork and visuals and things for it, have a gallery up here, like a on those image banners that cycles through, so you can put in a range of different things, like for example the graphics exploration you're doing for the title, or the menu that you're now working on, or screenshots of the map, sprites, all those things can go on there. Okay, so you can have a kind of more visual landing page at the start. Then if you nudge this down, you've got your authentication statement. Great. What I would say is put that at the base of the page, just because that, and put a little subheading of authentication statement. All right.
Okay.
And then you've got your proposal form, which is good. And we've said.
Although it is, I don't think it's finished yet because it hasn't got the candidate number on it.
We don't know that yet. So that's everything bar that. Yeah. So you're good to go in terms of having everything there that should be there. So that's good.
Every so often I just go back to it and like update it slightly, like just go through and colour the backgrounds and
I see that you've done very well, and that you've got this time management section filled out as well. Okay, so right, people, Matthew and can I just ask for quiet a little bit, just because otherwise you'll be on Rupert's recording forever. So thank you very much. So then we've got what's this bit saying? Oh, just an overview of your proposal. Is that something Matthew asked you to do, or is that something you've done yourself?
I can't remember exactly. He might have said just do a little blog about it, and I just got a bit carried away.
Okay, no, that's fine. Yeah, that's always good. You're always getting an extra mile, so that's good. And then we've got SWOT. Should the SWOT live here, or should it go on somewhere else? Do you know?
I don't know, because I feel like in the first week, each time it was written up on the board where stuff should go, it felt like some stuff was in different locations each time.
Okay, what we'll do is we'll just double check with the actual brief website over here. So if in doubt, always go to the final project page here, and then this website guide. I believe that planning and production is where the SWOT analysis goes, or maybe research, actually. I'm not sure. Let me just check if it's supposed to be listed on research. Things that go here. Oh yeah, SWOT analysis goes here. Okay.
Yeah.
So authentication form, supporting statement, proposal. So we've got that on the research page, but I don't know if we've also got it on here as well. No. So proposal forms in two places, but I'm happy with it just living on the homepage. Okay. But the SWOT analysis, put the SWOT in your research. Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, always consult this in the event that you're not sure what goes where. I'll just send that to you on chat to make it even more accessible whilst we're here. So it's just dead easy for you to consult back with what goes where, and then we can. If there's any more things like that today, then you can look at it. Yeah. Right. But yeah, all good. So we've got a completed proposal form. We've got a SWOT, and we've got that. So SWOT move over there. Add a gallery here. That's the first thing to do on that page. Okay. And if we go to bibliography and just check, we've got some sources coming up here, which is good. And again, more specific ones as you build this up.
Yeah.
So you'll be looking. Go on.
There are some of them on there that I need to go a bit more into specific, where I've just listed where I've listed the original website, but not the specific pages from there, because I've used that website a lot. Or something.
That's what I was going to say. I think it would be better to have the specific pages. So, let's say for Kotaku, for example, that you've gone and looked at a specific article on a military-based, sprite-based game, or a top-down military game. Let's have that linked rather than just general Kotaku. Okay, so we know that where you're getting that from. Right. So that's to do as well, which is good. We're finding things to add. Planning production. Okay, let's go to final product evaluation. I imagine there shouldn't be anything on here at the moment. So after today's video recording is complete, this can be embedded as a YouTube video on here with a reflection saying, right, Fraser said, sort my proposal form out, or no, leave that as it is, but add a gallery, move my statement or my swap rather, and all those things. Okay, so you can sort of summarize what the actions are. Escape page. Let's have a look at this. So you've said what escape means to you. You said you've got your mind map and exploration, and I think one of the final things to do would be to go back onto this page, look at the escape page itself, and just make it really categorically clear which pathway you're picking. So you're picking the game's pathway. You could almost go like this: Windows S, Shift S, screenshot this as kind of image. And I'm doing this for you, so I'll send this over to you now. That can go on there, and you can say, look, I picked the game's pathway because, and just sort of like you've already might have said that on that page. Unfortunately, in this review, I don't have time to sort of pick that up. So do you say anywhere that you pick games?
No, I don't think so.
Right, so let's chuck that on there, and then that gives you a little bit, not writing loads, but just a little bit. Say, I pick games because I want to go on to do games at level 3 after this course. I really enjoyed whatever you enjoyed, sprite work, Pixel, Game Maker, whatever it might be. Did a good job in the last Game Maker project, and then go from there. Okay, that makes sense?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yep. So back to the website. So that's that bit, escape. So we've already found things to do on each page, which is excellent. Means that this is worthwhile. You've looked at, we've got, by the looks of it, your scroll bar is small, so that's what I'm always after. I want a lot of work on here, which means that you've been working hard, which is good. So that means your research on a surface level, there's a lot there. So if we drill down a little bit, what have you mainly been looking at in your research, Rupert?
I've mainly been looking at top-down games, and more particularly top-down games that have a lot of fighting or a lot of ways to have some sort of fighting in it.
Yeah.
So I've gone over a lot of the same games over and over again, but that's because I know that the ones that I've chosen, there's at least something in there that makes sense.
Yeah.
And refers back to, so I can keep picking apart individual ones.
I like it. It looks like there's some diversity here as well with things like Plants vs Zombies, and it's not all just
I have tried to diversify it a bit because it was there was too many of the same games, but it's more.
I've never heard of this. Is this top down as well? Then?
Yes. Well,
but like a 3D model.
Yeah, it's 3D models, but that's one that I've quite heavily referred back to because.
Is that one you've played?
No, I haven't played it, but I have watched it a bit, so it somewhat links back, if that makes sense.
Yeah. This is good. I think also you've got codes of top-down games, and specifically military-style ones as well.
Yeah.
What is RimWorld then? That's not.
It's a game I quite like watching people play. It's kind of like a colony survival. Management simulator.
That's one you have played, or no?
No, I haven't played it.
Okay. And then Undertale, Stardew, Oh, this one looks nice. It's Foxhole again, Yeah, it does look quite cool. I've never heard of that. So that only came out last year, by the looks of it.
Yeah.
Right. So what I'm seeing is we've got a little bit of colour theory here. Because I talked to you about that the other day.
Yeah.
Factorio, the industrial sci-fi arts. Yeah. Okay. This looks good. One of the things I think what we can do is diversify a little bit. We've got a lot of games research, right? Which is fine. That makes sense. We're looking at a top-down game that's military themed, so that would be what you're naturally gravitating towards. However, and because it's sprite-based, that's another thing to look at. But things that you can do in addition to that will just broaden out your research a little bit is to think about the other factors that are going into this. So, for example, like right now you're making a menu. So UI design, again, you might want to look at other games have similar menus. That might naturally sort of feel like it sits more on the production page next to when you make your menu, and you might then refer back to the duck tutorial, the game, the one that I did before in the previous project, to recap like how to make it work. You probably just got it working anyway, I don't know, but if you did look at a tutorial, again, those sorts of things become technical research, and that links in, and you add that into it. Okay. But trying to diversify what you've got research-wise already. There's, other than the color theory bit, there's just a lot of repeat
stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of the same games, whether you're talking about them from different angles or different elements.
Yeah.
So what I think we need to look at is maybe a section purely on audio, let's say, and then we don't look at maybe those games, or we look at how, like, for example, like Foley libraries are used in games, or like in more realistic games. Maybe then you look at 8-bit sounds because yours is a low-fi or low poly game or low pixel game. Then you look at like that kind of implementation of sound. Then maybe art style wise, again, you could look at other games, but you might just want to look at like trying to achieve something that's more gritty and real. So texture wise, you could just go out and photograph some mud, some grass, some different terrain types, and then say, right, how can I replicate these in pixel form so I get my terrain feeling sort of realistic? So that's the kind of style you're going for, is it? Like sort of semi, even though it's pixely, you want a kind of a bit more gritty feel. That's what you were talking about color wise, wasn't it? About the links to forget the title now. You were talking about Factorio and things like that. It's a bit more like muted color palette. Is that what you're going for? You're going for brighter thing?
Kind of. I think that I was more just pointing out what kind of colours that these other games that are somewhat similar to what I'm going from, or I've gotten ideas from.
Yeah, cool.
So, as like these are colours that I'm most likely to use.
Yeah. So I think that's all relevant. What you've got there is good and it's relevant, but I think we just need to try and break out a little bit more. So So we're saying, okay, look, we could even link it over to diversify it even further. We could link it back to sort of strategy-based board games, like let's say Risk and things like that, games that are war-based and turn-based or whatever, or 3D games that aren't the same sort of style. Like we could talk about World of Tanks or something like that. And then like most games that exist are not directly inspired by other games. They'll be like, World of Tanks will have gone out and researched all the different tank classes. They'll have looked at how combat strategy works in a war scenario so that they can mimic that, how different types of terrain will affect the tanks in those scenarios. So try and think a bit more outside the game box, as it were, for inspiration or things to look at. Textures is a really good one like that. Foley libraries and sound libraries, maybe that again you look at audio sources and just think about what's freely out there. Maybe you capturing some of your own, etc. And again, maybe in Easter that you go to the Tank Museum, Bovington or whatever, or maybe that you go somewhere that has, I'm not saying you have to, but that might just provide some sort of like bit of insight that you could look at, or the Haynes Motor Museum and see some of the different vehicles there if they've got any military stuff. So just thinking about like what can we do that will give our product a bit more of a wider influence. Okay. So not to say that that's like what you've done is good. And I like this kind of stuff. When you've done something specific task-wise, that you've looked at typefaces and graphics, and that's influencing your title, fantastic. Same with like we said, with the menu, that could be a way that you go about doing that. And same with like the vehicle design. So you don't, you might well have already made a sprite for a vehicle, but you could just say, well, look, here's some actual real world tanks. It's my style is like a Panzer tank or a Leopard 2 or whatever it might be, and here's what kind of look it's got, or here's the type of camouflage that you would see typically in this type of terrain, and that's why this thing's got this type of camo on it. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We got mood board in production. You've got tanks here, so we've got combined World War One mech. This is a World War One tank, yeah.
Yeah.
German one.
Yeah. And I was trying to like show that kind of if you combine the things, you get some sort of rough idea.
Cool. So mech robots put in space. So is it no longer mech based like this?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's just that entire section I was explaining where the idea started from, because it's changed quite a bit before. Because I had an idea of what I wanted to do, but that was before we were given the word escape, and so it changed quite a lot.
Okay, cool. That's nice.
And I was trying to explain how there were some parts I've kept and how other parts have gone for no apparent reason.
So now is your project themed on still in space, as sci-fi?
No, not anymore. But the whole mechanized bit has continued. Okay. It was originally going to be like Super Mario, but kind of more like mecha, like robots and mechs in space. But that bit kind of dropped off because I didn't really know how I could adapt that with Escape.
Yeah.
But I've kept the mechanized side of it and combined it with like steampunk designs for like World War One tanks, and then from there.
That sounds cool. And this is a sketch of the map design.
Yeah, I've decided to do 3 levels because it's a lot easier than trying to fit everything into one.
Okay. So we've got process videos for these, but have we got the final pictures anywhere of what they?
No, but I can get that easily because I have them. Yeah.
I think as well as seeing the process of you sketching them out, which is fine. But the more interesting thing here is the product. So we can see like like you could put them as a gallery. Here are the 3 levels, and you know you can see the distinctly different terrains. Where is it set then, Rupert? Is it set in a fictional world, or is it where?
Yeah, kind of in a fictional world. I haven't picked a specific location, but it is supposed to be somewhere during the First World War.
Okay.
So some sort of like
European.
Yeah, some sort of European country.
Yeah. Again, I think that would be useful to do. That is another opportunity for you to diversify your research.
Yeah.
So not saying you have to go over to Belgium and look at the forest there or whatever, but there will be records of like what that looked like, all the trenches at the Somme or whatever. So you can go and get representational imagery of that, and then you can say like, look, this is when we've got the muddy terrain, which I don't know if this map here is. I'm not sure. Is this one like a trenches type?
Well, I think the kind of running idea I've got is like, with having to run back to base, you go down a different path instead of running back through the field you were in, because you might get killed if you do that. So it's like you got to navigate through like a cliff area.
Okay, so
does
any of it reference like the kind of trench scenario that was quite famous in World War One? Until like you're in that sense, that's your cover or not?
A bit with the first level, but
okay, that's what I would think. I think we've got some research opportunities here to expand on. So we've got the ability to research World War One combat in general and the different types of places it took place, like for example the trenches, or as you're saying, maybe there was elements in the forest that you would have trees as cover. Great. Make sure that those things are shown in your research. Okay.
Yeah.
Equally, it's not a specific country. You're maybe staying neutral to avoid representing a side. Do you play as a British soldier? Do you play as
well, I've kind of based the tank design on the main German tank from the First World War, so something along the lines of that. But
so you play as the Germans? Okay, that's quite
most likely.
Yeah.
It will either be that, or I won't specifically say who. I might just make up 2 random factions in the end and say they're kind of at war.
Again, I think one of the things to do with that is to justify that, and that's another bit of research. So you can say, look, I'm doing that for the reason that I want the product to be less about the political past and that which would make your game maybe alienating to some people if it's like if you portray the Germans like as they typically are as the enemy, or you portray the Americans as the heroes or whatever, that could instantly rule out huge markets. Whereas if it's just kind of generic sort of war game that's loosely based on the scenarios of First World War combat, then that's fine. But equally, you might say, look, I do want to take a side, and that's why I've done that. So all that justification can happen through the research that you do. Okay.
Yeah.
You might say, well, I want to research a specific person's story from that war and then follow them through. A bit like sort of not that Saving Private Ryan's like the first one, but that idea that you're sort of picking a kind of individual person's path and telling that story. So lots of opportunity. Equally with it might just end up being a generic sort of European place, but we need to then make sure that the trees look right, that they don't feel American or feel like South American or like it's a jungle or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So
I think it was just the whole tank design. I just found it a lot easier and simpler to kind of make a mech tank combination with the German tank than it was with any of the others, because the others are a lot more.
No, I really like that, and I like these sort of fictional mechs as well. I like the idea that if it's a kind of fantasy based take on the past, where you've got these almost like these look like those Boston Dynamic robot dog things and stuff like that. Then if you're retelling what's happened in the past but in a new way, then you can just go off on a completely different tangent. You can say, look, I'm incorporating new technology, because Battlefield 1 did that when they did the whole World War One scenario. The guns in Battlefield 1 are so sort of antiquated that they don't meet the demands of modern gamers. You know, you can't have a Luger that has one shot and then it takes ages to reload, or you know, it's a small clip. So you have to make up these sort of hybrid things that didn't exist, like these Gatling guns or machine guns that didn't, you know, semi-automatic stuff that was not around at that time, just to please the market. So that's kind of what you're doing in these things, which is great. So you could say maybe yours is more of a steampunk take on the World War One era, in which case then you could look at steampunk and things like that. Okay.
If you're doing mechs around the war era, look at
diesel punk. Oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. So you got, I think there was some reference to that game Iron Harvest or something, wasn't there? Yeah. So that's kind of again along the similar lines. So it's looking at like those sorts of technologies and the history of that thing, and then you can make up your own thing. It could be just a Rupert hybrid or whatever, but just again it links back into that research. Okay. So those things research wise will really help to tighten up the product. And then things like getting the map designs sketched out and stuff like that before, or showing the final designs before you get too much further with it. And then, like, I imagine the next phase will be, once you get into making these things, have shooting weapons. That'll be something that will be new technology wise that you didn't do in the last Game Maker project. So you'll need to look at a shooting / combat mechanism and an enemy that can be destroyed on impact and stuff like that. So those are all really exciting things, and there's lots of fantastic work that's happened already, but there's an opportunity there to bolster the research and to go a bit wider with it. And like I say, texture research, sound research, things that you can just do like that are not games related, that you can just photograph and grab. Does that make sense? Yeah, really good. I'm really impressed with what you've done, and you're working really hard on it. I can see there's a lot of work that's gone into everything, and you're obviously going really hard at it and doing lots of things. Make sure in your reflection.
That bit I think I need to add a bit more.
No, I'm saying this is quite good. This is like, so you're saying the third level should be the easiest out of the three, as you can so that you can die in level 3 and go out to get a kill in the level.
Right, and half the time.
But so like it might be that you're saying, right, okay, so this last level represents the easiest level to make from your perspective, or is it like the easiest one or the hardest one in terms of a lack of cover for the player to play through? So just make sure that you're adding those sorts of insightful reflections that say what you're doing and why, and that's really cool. And the things like the decision on the choice of the title has changed and all those things, which is great. So again, document why that's happened and what the fact that you've identified that it maybe could be offensive, or it could have changed direction because it was like just quite a long title, so those are all those things. If you haven't already done so, have you done that already?
I put a section at the end. I kept all the stuff that I'd already done, and I just added this small section, well, basically I haven't added any more to that because on the day I was doing that I had completely forgotten to take my medication, so I was struggling to focus.
Oh, that's fair enough.
So I haven't gotten around to finish.
I'm not saying, no, you don't have to, but like that's these things happen. I think like
I've kept all of that to show that this is what it was, and then I've added a section to explain why I've had to change it.
Much more snappy title. I much prefer this as well. Head there. So it's got that like alliteration thing. It's really good. It's very cool. So, and again, that's what happens in games. So like that, if it all went well, and you got it perfect first time every time, you wouldn't have all the problem solving and the issues to document, which is important as evidence. So that's all good. And the fact you're reacting to suggestions, taking on board feedback, that's again another really commendable thing. So just put a little bit in the Easter break, if you can, a little bit of time into a bit more research, thinking of just like, all right, what's wider that I can do here. Okay. Fantastic. Well done. Really good start, Reaper. And get those bits in there, please. And I'll stop recording, and I'll send you the video of this once